Utilizing the service of others for your own personal growth. What do you think about that? Welcome to the Joyous Expansion Podcast. I'm your host, Brett Dupree, scouring the globe to bring you stories of courage, passion, and resilience. If I could sum up this podcast into one word, I would use empathy. Now let's get inspired. Welcome to episode 2 of the Joyous Expansion Podcast. Yes, I have a name. Of course, you don't know if that is a thing that I should worry about or you should even consider. But the fact is, when I created this podcast, I did not have a name. I kind of decided, I don't know if I want to call it Joyous Expansion Podcast. But here I am, going forward and not worrying about being perfect. There are reasons why I didn't want to call it the Joyous Expansion Podcast, but there's no need to go into that now. As I am going through my life and working on improving it and becoming better at this whole business thing, better at becoming this whole personal growth thing, becoming better at being the champion of authentic joy, catalyst of transformation. Some say maybe I should just pick one tagline, but after watching one of my favorite shows, Game of Thrones, Daenerys Targaryen has a lot. So why worry about? I can be the champion of authentic joy. I can be the catalyst of transformation. I can be the purveyor of amazing hugs. But it doesn't matter what I call myself. What matters is exactly what I do. How do I serve people? How do I go upon doing this podcast, as I am stepping in more so to my joy of who I am and understanding what it means to work on changing my life as well as changing others. I think back to my personal development growth and about 10 years ago when I decided that maybe I should take that plunge and become a life coach, going into almost $9,000 in debt to go to life coaching school. Thinking to myself that maybe I should do YouTube videos, maybe I should do podcasts, maybe I should do this, maybe I should do email marketing, maybe I should put on workshops. But the thing that was consistent about my path was the fact that I was inconsistent about my path. If you listen to episode 1, Scott Holt did a great job of pointing out to me the pattern that people go through as going through that hope, going through that excitement to hope, to despair, to panic, and getting to the point where it's hard to move forward. And so many times in my life, it is hard to move forward. But the realization I had was simple. It was time to work on developing the ultimate mindset. And what is the ultimate mindset? The ultimate mindset is one where the outside reality does not affect the inner reality. As I heard from the great speaker Les Brown, the African proverb, when there is no enemy within, the enemy without can do no harm. And taking that up to reality and truly living that is harder done than it is said. In fact, it's very easy to say. I just said it. However, reality has this problem of feeling very real when slights happen, when things I don't want happens. How do I stop the disappointment? How do I stop feeling sad when I put so much work into a workshop, charge practically nothing, $10, and then get that email of somebody just ripping me for charging $10 and wasting their time? How do I keep on going after that, even though half the people in the workshop did like it? How do I not listen to that one person? How do I not take that personally? How do I not take it personally when I create a YouTube video and I get no views? How do I not take it personally when I send an email and only 5% opening it is a celebration? And most of those people are my friends. How do I not take it personal? The fact that making money is more of a trickle. And spending money feels like a garden hose when it comes to my goals, when it comes to my dreams, when it comes to going for it. And the main problem is Might not seem like a main problem, but it feels like a main problem is the fact that I do not feel like quitting. I don't know what it is that keeps me going. It is the fact that this feels like my purpose. This feels like my reason to be on this earth, at least at this moment, to keep on pushing on, to keep on making my podcast, to keep on making my videos, to keep on going to Toastmasters and learning how to speak and perform my message to people so that they listen, and then go out there and create those workshops, go out there and create those online courses that I know that can help people. And nothing gets me more excited than doing so, but it's the doubt that keeps me from pushing forward. And one of the reasons why I created this podcast is because I want to use my business to help me develop the ultimate mindset, which is to keep on pushing forward. And all those negative feelings that comes from doing this podcast, I can use them to transform into more powerful ones. And boy, there are many negative feelings when it comes to doing this. Number one, asking for people to be on here. I do not like asking for help. Putting up a website. While I like programming websites, I do not like designing them. I feel like I'm not very good at it, especially picking out color schemes. And telling people that they should enjoy my work. And the fact that I plan on spending money on ads, even if it's just $20, that feel in the back of my head that I might as well take that $20 and put it down the toilet because I'm going to get the same amount of results. All those negative feelings are there. But the thing about feelings is they're not right. They're not wrong. They exist. I feel fear because this fear wants to protect me. It wants to protect me from feeling bad. It wants to protect me from being disappointed. It wants to protect me from pain. And allowing my actions to be controlled by that fear is a choice. And I'm utilizing this podcast to help me build that resilience muscle, which is why I've chosen almost all of my beginning interviews are more about the people's struggle and resilience than advice for success, because that's what I want to listen to. That's what I need right now. And my knowledge of going through this is that I am not alone. I know if I need to hear these messages, there are people out there that need them as well. And one of the beauties of putting this out there is that the right people come to you. At least that has been my experience with this podcast, which really makes me feel like maybe I hit something. Maybe this will be something I am consistent with. I know, I probably should stop saying that, because if you're thinking, wow, maybe I shouldn't subscribe if he's just going to quit after 6 weeks. Subscribe, because it's about to get a little bit more hopeful. Speaking of my next interviewee, Phil Cmor, he talks a lot about utilizing his desire to serve other people for his own personal growth. The more he serves others, the better he is himself. And that's one of the reasons why I really wanted to do interviews for this podcast, because that puts me beholden to someone else. In my other podcast, I just talked. So I did it once a week for a little bit, and then I did it once every 2 weeks, and then I went to once a month, I believe, and then I quit. But this is a little different, because right now I have 8 interviews. Well, I will have at least 8. This is a Sunday, and on Wednesday I will have my 8th interview. So I feel beholden to get these out for people who sacrifice their time and put trust in me to keep on going. And my hope is when those come out, more people are going to jump on the bandwagon of being interviewed by me, thus almost forcing myself to become consistent, forcing myself to grow, and utilizing all the tools I have learned and that I teach to my clients, that I put in my courses, to take myself to a whole new level of the thing that I know I am missing the most: consistency. I am looking forward to you listening to this next interview. He is a little different than most interviews you'd hear on a podcast done by a life coach such as myself, as he does not have anything to sell. He just heard what I am trying to create, knows he has a story to tell, knows if people listen to him, that they too can change their lives. And I am proud and honored to have him on today. The interesting part is I have known Phil Cmor for over 20 years. We actually met on a Miami Herald bulletin board talking about football. And we're both Miami Dolphin fans. Yes, it's been a long 15 years. I think it's 20. The saddest part about that joke, it just gets bigger and bigger. I'm hoping it stops soon. But the funny part is I just learned how to pronounce his name during this interview. His handle on the Miami Dolphin Herald board was Cmor, so I always called him Cmor. And I realize now I should have at least went with Ts-zmore, because that's actually a name. Well, anyway, let's introduce Phil Cmor, who is a journalist for a daily newspaper in Pennsylvania. He developed an anxiety issue that almost forced him to quit college the very first week. While he overcame that and graduated with honors, anxiety always has impacted his life and relationships in ways that he could be considered both negative and positive. He's tried to set aside portions of his life to assisting others that deal with similar challenges and just be a positive role model and influence on anyone with whom he comes in contact. It is my honor to introduce you all to Phil Cmor. Hey, welcome, Phil Cmor, to my so far unnamed podcast.
Thanks for having me, Brett. It's a pleasure to be here. Always glad to get a chance to talk to you and to talk about this subject.
Listeners, I've been knowing Cmor for over 20 years now. We met at the Miami Herald Talk bulletin board talking about the Miami Dolphins. His username was Cmor, so I'll probably be calling him by his last name a few times just by accident, because that's who he is in my brain.
and that's fine. That's fine.
So, Philip, tell us a little something about yourself, your story.
Sure. I'm 51 years old. I'm a sports journalist located in the eastern part of the country. I've kind of taken a strange path to be there. I mean, I'm a manager at the newspaper at which I work, but it wasn't an easy path to get there. You know, I grew up in a biracial community, and when I was 6, we moved into a rural, very racially homogenous community where things were a lot different for me. It took some time to adjust. You know, you dealt with bullying and things like that when you're kind of the new kid coming into a situation like that. Lost my father 2 years after we moved up. We lived in pretty much poverty conditions, but I managed to get into college. I through my academics, I earned a full scholarship to college. But I ran into some hurdles before I got there. In my last year of high school, an incident caused me to develop an anxiety issue that almost made me quit college in my very first week. And it was something I had to battle through, and something that's really shaped my life. It's something that I still deal with from time to time. It's something that shapes relationships. Sometimes I deal with, while I don't think it's depression type issues. And so it's something that I've learned to battle, and also something that's made me very empathetic to other people dealing with similar anxiety, stress, depression, or other issues that cause kind of emotional turmoil in their lives.
So how would your anxiety show up into the world?
It was very, very evident. Actually, it was like I would be in any kind of a public setting where I felt attention would be brought upon me, and I would get nauseous. I would, not to be too blunt, but I would feel like I was going to throw up. I mean, and I never did, but it was a defense mechanism that my mind created in me, I guess a psychosomatic reaction to fear of going out and embarrassing myself in public because of something a teacher had done in my senior year of high school that actually caused me to go and do that. I became so fearful of peers, laughing at me, deriding me over things like that it planted it in my mind to protect me from ever getting into situations like that. So it would pop up, stop me from actually going out and doing things and interacting. And it really created a big problem.
Was there an inciting incident that happened?
Yeah, there was an incident where I had been growing up. I dealt with bullying. I had dealt with being kind of the outsider because I was a new kid in an area that was very rural. A lot of people been in the area for generations, and we moved in, and we were a very different culture. Because of that, I mean, I was shy. I dealt with things. I dealt with bullying, and I decided toward my sophomore year I was not going to let that continue to shape my life. I decided I was going to become more outgoing. I was going to force myself to be like that. Part of the thing was too that I decided I was going to go to school regardless of how I felt. I was going to go out there. I was going to tough it out. I was going to make myself mentally tougher. Well, the one day I went in probably when I shouldn't have. I wasn't feeling well. I don't know if I had a touch of the flu or whatever. And I told my first period teacher. I told him what was going on. I said, "Hey, could you please not call on me in class? I really don't feel well, but I don't want to go to the nurse or anything like that." He said, "Sure." And then the very first thing he did in class was call on me and point out what I had told him in front of the whole class. And that being noted for that was petrifying for me. It shouldn't have been, but dealing with bullying and things like that, I think not wanting to be too much of a center of attention, not wanting to be too different kind of clicked things in for me. And, within the next hour, I actually went out into the hall and threw up and drew more attention to myself. And it just, like I said, it just affected
Wow.
me since then.
What a story. Yeah, I totally understand that and can empathize. I remember back in my high school days, the worst thing that could happen to me was somebody pay attention to me.
Yeah, and I had a lot of that because again, I was different. I was from a different culture. We were, like I said, very Eastern European oriented. My family had not been in the country for that long. And so it made us different. Again, we moved into an area where we weren't related to people. We didn't know people, and it made the transition tougher. And again, when I lost my father, it made the transition even more difficult.
I can't imagine losing a father that young.
Yeah, it was really tough because he and I were very close, very charismatic man, very intelligent. He and my mother were good balances to one another. My father was kind of like the guy whose head was always in the clouds, who could go out and do anything and made big plans. And my mother was kind of the one that kept him down to earth so he didn't float away. I had a great childhood in terms of my family, in terms of my parents. Although again, financially we were challenged, and then there were other challenges that came along with that in terms of socialization.
When it came to your anxieties, especially during that young age, what did it feel like it prevented you from doing that you really wanted to?
A lot of things. Dating's one thing. Was always a challenge because I was one thing that I dealt with was I always felt I had to be perfect. I always felt I had to do everything right, and I was always polite, and I always wanted to be respectful of other people. I never really dated. I had friends, but I never really dated. Never had those kind of relationships growing up. And I would have obviously adversarial relationships with people that were into bullying people that had to try to hold other people down. I was an easy target for things like that because I was kind of an individual. I didn't run with any particular group. I spent some time with the athletes. I spent some time with the band kids. I spent some. I mean, I would kind of go back and forth. I was not someone that particularly fit into the air quotes clique, on air quote. And like I said, it got to a point that also where you have a situation like that, you don't particularly have people that you can turn to and talk to, and you don't have a lot of outlets to try to defeat that. So when I went to college and I was having trouble even going into like the testing portions, the placement tests, it got to a point where I had to go, and I had a psychology course my first semester, and I decided to go to the psychology professor and discuss it with her, and she gave me some relaxation techniques that helped me enough to actually go into situations that normally would trigger adverse responses. And the more I was able to get through those situations, the more confidence built up. And over a period of years, I finally was able to go out and be more outgoing and go into public settings. Now, I still have trouble, going out into public settings and speaking and things, but I'm able to do it. I'm able to generally get through it. I'm able to find ways to relax myself enough to operate. But there are times where stress will build up and I still deal with things.
That is really cool. One thing I noticed, especially with my own social anxiety that I had, the thought of asking for somebody's help felt like a weakness, especially being a man, and this idea that as a man, I should be able to deal with all this stuff on my own because that's what strength is. It seems like at your time in college, you're able to actually ask somebody for help. How did that come about?
It came about, it was basically fight or flight. It was either that I go and find a solution to this, or at least find a way that could help me fight through it, or basically everything that I'd worked my life for. Yeah, I was probably going to turn agoraphobic. I was probably going to just get to a point where I wasn't going to be able to go outside and function at all, and deal with any kind of relationships with people. And you're right about, I think it goes beyond just, I think with men dealing with emotions, although I think it's getting better, has always been an issue. But I think in general in our society, we're not very good at dealing with any kind of emotions. People talk like, well, we want honesty, we want honesty. We're not comfortable talking too much honesty and talking too much feelings. For whatever reason, I have a lot of theories about that, probably too much to go into. But it's really made it hard for people to go out and seek contact, even with their friends, to discuss when something's really bothering them. I think friends are really the best first therapy you can get. And I think that there's also times where I think we've blurred the lines a lot these days between, psychological issues and sociological issues. I think sometimes we're so, there's so many preconceptions about people's individualism and being themselves, and being a little off the track in terms of not mainstream in their thinking. And we can even talk about that, when it goes to people in like the LBGTQ communities and things like that, and the things that they deal with being accepted into society, how those were once dealt with as psychological issues, but they turned out to be sociological issues. We still have trouble, I think, really accepting people for who they are. There's still a tendency for groups to want to have people fit into their world instead of accepting everyone for their difference.
Asked for help, and then you got to the point where you could be more social. How was that, being able to put yourself out there more?
I mean, obviously the first times you're doing it, it's pretty scary. It's, because you don't know if you're going to go out there and the first time that it happens, that the reaction that your brain is telling you might happen actually will happen. So there was a little bit of, again, you had to really practice, just like I guess when you're riding a bike or writing for the first time or anything like that, you have to practice it and you really focus meticulously on every little fundamental aspect of it. I had to really practice my relaxation techniques. I had to try to think positive thoughts instead of negative thoughts. Think the good things that can happen instead of the bad things. And again, the more I did that and the more success I had, the more confidence built up, the less like I was going to be to think about bad things happening. And when I went through, each time I got through something like that, each time I had a positive social interaction, the happiness I received from that made me want to go out and have another successful social interaction. It made me want to go out there, and it made me want to tell my story or my stories. It wanted me to hear other people's stories. It wanted me to be able to relate and do things and reach a larger audience with whatever I was doing. And that became kind of a motivational thing for me to continue to get better and get through these issues.
So using the desire to help and serve others helped you grow yourself.
Definitely, and it still does to this day. In fact, it's something that's really become more and more of a driving force in my life, to the point that now I'm looking at taking my career in different directions where I can do more to help people. Instead of just going and working largely in an office or going out and covering sporting events. I'm not a licensed therapist by any means, but I've been very open about what I've dealt with in my life. And people have come to me. I've had people that have come to me that deal with borderline personality, that deal with bipolar disorder, people that, have dealt with marriage issues. Couples have come to me. I've had people that have come to me that have gone through separations and they just want to talk. And they're just friends for the most part. Some people are actually more acquaintances or strangers, but they seem to feel that for whatever reason that they come to me, they can talk to me. I try to offer my insight. I try to offer to them any kind of guidance or encouragement or support that I can, and I really feel fulfilled in doing that. It's almost like that the stuff that I went through, which I think in a lot of cases is small by comparison to the stuff that I hear from other people. It's almost like that was a launching pad to do something bigger with my life. And I really feel helping people. I think it's a calling. I mean, I really do. And the thing is, one thing I would say is the way that I got over my issue, everyone has their own separate ways to dealing with their hurdles and the obstacles that they encounter in their lives. There is no right or wrong way. There is no right or wrong way to get from point A to point B. There's a lot of different ways you can go there. You can take the quickest path, you can take the more scenic path, but you still get there either way. I think the thing is to find things that make you happy, find things that you enjoy, in the tough times, find things that motivate you. Something that I've found when I deal with real tough times still in my life, when I have some kind of reversal socially or in time or in terms of my work that really get me down to the point of feeling almost depressed. One, I try to rest a little bit, try to basically recharge my brain, recharge my emotions, get myself going. The other thing I try to do is I try to find things that I enjoy. I've been a basketball coach. I've worked with youth for about 30 years of my life. I try to get out and play basketball. Sometimes go out and play with young people, shoot around and things. Do that. Try to school them a bit on the game. I also get into working out, into improving my physical condition. In 2009 and again last year, I dealt with times where I had very emotionally challenging, very emotionally charged incidents in my life. I lost 40 pounds, but I didn't lose 40 pounds from not eating. I lost 40 pounds from actually a process of improving my diet and exercise. My doctors actually, on the first occasion, saw how much weight I'd lost and were concerned and made me go back and get my blood work and everything retaken. Came back and I had my blood work matched that of someone 20 years younger than myself. They were surprised, but it was just that it was taking the negative emotions, the anxiety, the stress and such, and trying to turn it into fuel for a positive end.
One thing that I like about what you just said is the idea that, yeah, you're not a therapist, you have no training. However, you don't need any of that just to be there for someone, just to listen to someone, and how powerful it is just to be there for someone, for both the person as well as yourself.
Yeah, you know what? You don't need a certificate to be kind. You don't need a certificate to be able to listen to people, to be able to be there for someone. I've been fortunate. I've had a couple friends, that I've met over the years. And again, if I hadn't have gone through this and beaten it, I would have never met these people. And now when I have something that goes on, I do have people that I can turn to, people to be a sounding board, people to encourage me, people to say, I mean, this is stuff that similar to things that they have gone through, or what I mean, that'll point out to me the good things and the ways that I've influenced other people's lives and helped them.
So how'd you go about meeting these?
Well, a lot of them has actually been through my work. And again, I wouldn't have had my work if I'd been forced to quit college, if I hadn't made it through that. And the thing is, in my job, I mean, I'm a journalist. I do a lot of interviewing of people. I don't approach it as a job. I approach my work as, we're telling stories about people. We're not just writing scores and how many points they scored, how many yards they ran for. I think people relate to hearing stories about people. And I think maybe in the process of doing these interviews, meeting these people, it actually turned into, in a lot of cases, more friendships than they were just work contacts. Probably the thing I'm most proud of, the thing I feel best about the job that I've done.
That's awesome. That's actually the idea behind this podcast, really, is to get people together and to present sometimes normal people who aren't trying to sell a program or anything, so that people can listen to other people and know that they're not alone. There's someone out there going through something similar. There's someone they can talk to, and how to also help themselves as well.
Yeah, and I think most of us, deep down deal with some kind of issues. We deal with some kind of, insecurities or lack of confidence that runs so deep that it probably holds us back, that it makes us fear going out, being everything we can be. And again, I think our society doesn't really help us in that, because our society, is really afraid to talk feelings, is afraid to talk emotions, probably because a lot of us know that we deal with things like that, but we've been made to feel like that it makes us somehow imperfect. It makes us somehow, like not quite right. That and really, when you talk to most people one on one, they'll be able to tell you similar stories to the one I'm telling you now, to the one that you tell, the people that, that listen to you. We all deal with that. I think the thing is to be out there and become more and more accepting of people who go with things, be more and more accepting of lifestyles that aren't our own. As long as you're not hurting another person, I think that we should be free to be ourselves, to explore our own truths, our own freedom, our own lives, take our own path, whatever we choose, from point A to point B, and to lead our most fulfilling, happy life. I think when people are happy with their own lives, I think that they are less likely to go out and interfere adversely in the lives of other people. I think that creates a better society for ourselves. And again, I think that's where sometimes the lines become, blurred between psychological issues and sociological issues, where often we go and focus on people in psychological issues, and we want to make them fit into society, where I think really, I think we should be working to make society more tolerant and more accepting of people not doing everything exactly in a cookie cutter fashion what other people do.
I totally agree. The idea of accepting our differences. That was actually one of my most important ideals, especially when it came to dating. Instead of having people try to fit into what they should be, to start accepting the reality of the situation, that people are the way they are, and thus just presenting more love to them rather than worrying about whether or not they love me.
And that's something central to me. I mean, I'm big, and it makes people uncomfortable. I'm very big about talking about love I have for other people as individuals, love for, people I have romantically, or just, as friends. I think we have to understand, you can love someone and not agree with everything that they do. You can, if you love someone, it's not about what you get back. It's about what you see in them that brings happiness to you, and not wanting to change them. I just think that too often, in terms of love, we get caught up in thinking, maybe worrying about being hurt. It's about an expectation of getting something back. You have to understand that any relationship, friendship, romantic, or whatever, is almost never going to be 50-50. It's a matter of how much, happiness you engender in each other, how much you can help each other's lives. And not everyone is going to want to be romantically involved with you, or not. Someone you might want to be a close friend with may not feel the same way back towards you. And you have to accept that. You have to realize that not everyone is everyone's cup of tea. And yet there's still room for that in our lives. There's still room to have people like that. There's still room to have relationships with like that. I think we have to be true to who we are. I think I don't think it does us any good to go out on dates and try to win someone over. I mean, I think there's being polite. I think there's being kind. I think there's being civil. But, I mean, if you go out there and try to pretend to be someone else, eventually that person, especially if you win them over, is going to find out that you weren't who you presented yourself to be. I think you should be happy with who you are. You should find out who you are and accept that person yourself. And you can see flaws in yourself. You can see things, or maybe not even flaws, but things you want to improve in yourself. Go out and work on improving them. There's no rule that says that by 20 years old you have to be a finished product. There's no rule that says by the time you're 80 you have to be a finished product. You can always continue to try to change directions and make differences and tweak your life or turn things around in a totally different direction. And until you have the last rites, there's always opportunities to make changes in your life. But be true to yourself. The person that you have to please the most is the person that looks back at you in the mirror every day. That's the one person you have to live with every second of your life. So it's most important to be able to live with that person, in my opinion.
Wow, that was a powerful statement.
Well, it's just something, that I've as I said, through my life, I've had an opportunity to think about a lot of these things, and I've had, again, my right is not someone else's right. My way doesn't have to be someone else's way. Everyone has to find their own path.
You've been doing a lot of work on yourself. Tell us, what do you feel that your personal benefits are? What did you get out of this? Was it worth it?
I think so. I mean, there's definitely times where I would probably say not so much. There's times where I thought to myself, there's times where I've thought to myself, that this didn't pay off. There's time. I mean, I'll be perfectly honest. There's times where I go through where I say, boy, I wish I'd never been born. Why do I have to deal with these things? But in general, again, I think that no matter how my life plays out, there are examples that other people hopefully can take from seeing what I've gone through, how I've dealt with it, things that they can see that maybe I can't because I'm so close, that they could have done better. And maybe they can apply it to their own challenges. The very things that I've gone through have made me feel fulfilled because it's made me feel called to try to just be there for others, whether they're my friends, honestly, people that sometimes would be classified as my enemies. There is an empathy and a compassion to being a fellow human being. And I think, in a path to try to self-actualize, I think, you get to a point where where you shrug off perceived slights and you just want to try to help everyone else be better, because that ripples through society. The person you help may help two other people, and those people may help two other people, and those people may help two other people. And before you know it, you've helped hundreds of people just from a random act of kindness, just by telling someone that you care, that you have something to offer them, that you want to see them be happier.
That's the entire impetus of Joyous Expansion, which is you help one person, they help one person, they help one person, and then you spread that joyous expansion upon the world. That's pretty much my entire thing right there. Going to the end of our time together, which thank you very much. One thing I like to ask people to do is to give a minute of motivation, where you can just go at it and just have a 1 minute of what you really want people to walk away with, what really inspires them, what can really just listen to them and go, yeah, at the end of our talk together. So are you ready for your minute of motivation?
Well, I'll try my best about it. I guess, again, what I would say is just treat each other with kindness, treat people as you would want to be treated. Offer encouragement. If you see someone do something nice for you or for someone else, point it out. Be as quick to point out something positive as a lot of people are to complain about something. Try to take a step back and understand other people's perspectives before speaking out of anger. Realize that character is more important than characteristics. No matter what your skin color, your sexual preference, your age, that doesn't prohibit you from being kind and compassionate to other people. Honesty to ourselves and to others is always a good policy, that we all, again, have our own points to our destinations. If we're able to feel more comfortable with who we are in life, we'll be happy. happier. That carries through. That happiness is contagious and will help other people and ultimately create a better society. Be able to talk to other people, not just there. I think just being able to be open and exchange thoughts, emotions, ideas with other people, it can be a therapy on its own.
Awesome. I really need to get a like boom to start cutting people off at the minute, but you hit it. Good job. Thank you so much, Philip, for coming on to my podcast, being my second interview so far. It's been a really cool time listening about your story, listening about what you went through and how you have used the service of helping others to help yourself, as well as a way to spread joy. There is just something special about serving other people. And the more you can serve other people, that is a way to heal yourself, because we're all a reflection of each other. We all go through issues, and yes, there's this idea that maybe our issues aren't as bad as someone else's, but one thing I'm always reminded of is the fact that pain is like a gas. It just fills the space. And so recognizing the fact that yes, our pain is valid and their pain is valid, we don't need to get into a pain contest, is just, there's something special about that. So I thank you very much for sharing your story with us. I am sure with the dozens or so listeners who actually listen, that definitely one person has been helped. And thus creating your person who goes out and helps two people, who helps two people. And hopefully you touch thousands, if not millions of people today. So again, thank you very much for showing up.
Hey, thank you very much for having me on, Brett. I really enjoyed the opportunity.
Well, talk to you later, my friend.
Take it easy. Again, it was a pleasure.
You don't need a certificate to be kind. Wow. One of the benefits of doing this podcast is that I have to listen to I get the privilege to listening to these interviews multiple times. First, when I'm doing the interview. Second, when I'm editing the interview. And third, when I listen to it again to record this part of the podcast. Wow. What an amazing interview. I really like the fact that Cmor, Philip, learned tips and tools in his life to help him move through the problems and issues that he had, as well as putting it out there and helping others. Early in my personal development, I remember when I decided to change my life and I just started putting stuff into my first blog. Unfortunately, that blog is MySpace, and MySpace blogs are gone. So all that content is gone. But it doesn't really matter. What matters is I remember my friends telling me things like, wow, that got me thinking. And you never know who you're going to change. You never know who you're going to help. You never know what you put out there affects people. And this is one of the things that helps me keep going. Even when I don't have the success I want, even if I don't have the downloads I want, even if I put something out there and put so much work in it and the results just are not propelling me to the heights of my dreams, I still remember that one person whose life I've changed because I decided to keep on going. Sometimes that is all I need. And I know for a fact that hearing other people's stories, hearing other people's struggles have affected me and helped me to move forward. Which is one of the beauties of doing interviews with multiple people is some people, you just won't mesh with. I won't mention names, but there's a former world champion of public speaking who talks about his story. And since his story is such extreme poverty, and yes, I grew up in poverty as well, but I did not grow up with his poverty. So his message, though inspiring, doesn't sit with me as well. But listening to stories like Philip, who also has a lot of the same experiences and anxieties that I have, but not so much where it is beyond my imagination for my life. And notice how he can push forward and he can move forward. It's so very interesting. I absolutely love listening to these interviews, and I actually love listening. This is a lot of fun. I mean, this is just episode 2, folks, and I'm having a blast. This is just amazing. Listening to wisdom of people. I mean, we want the Tony Robbins, the Wayne Dyers, the people who are on high mountains of personal development, when in reality, just being kind and listening and being there for somebody may be all you need at that moment in time. I am reminded of a story I heard of a woman whose children were killed in a war, and she went up to a guru, despondent, just wanting the pain to go away. And she asked the guru, "How do I make this pain go away?" She can't stand it anymore. And the guru looked at her and said, "I want you to go to a house and just find one house that has not experienced loss." Despondent and sad because the lady did not get what she wanted. She wanted an easy answer, a quick fix to take the pain away. But she trusted the guru and went on with her life and decided to take upon the advice and went to the first house. The first person opened the door and she asked, "Have you experienced loss?" The person talked about a couple months ago that their father passed away and how they're very sad. The woman's heart filled up with empathy for that person's loss, went in and talked to them, consoled them, be there for them, and then went away to find the next house. And at the next house, she found another way to connect with another person upon a loss in their house, in their life. And that happened at the next house, at the next house, at the next house. For 3 months to a year, she went on and found house to house, being there for people, consoling them with their loss, listening to tales of loved ones past, until finally she returned to the guru and just said, "Thank you." Because we all have experienced loss. We all have experienced loss. We all have experienced pain. And it's when we share our pain, when we empathize with other people, that is one of the best ways to not only help our fellow man, but to help ourselves. The more we connect, the more we share, and the more we love each other, the better the world is going to be. I know this might sound a little hairy-fairy woo-woo to you, but I do know for a fact that we are social creatures. Just look up any study on human interaction. Unless you're a sociopath or a psychopath, you need people. And the more we need each other, the more we give to each other. It's like at the end of Scrooged, one of my favorite endings. And just help each other and lift each other up as a rising tide lifts all ships. Let's rise this tide and change this world. I always do an outro, which is what I call it, a call to action for my guests. Have them write it out. And then Philip doesn't have anything to sell. He doesn't have a website. But he did leave one last thought that I would like to read for you. Cmor doesn't perform any formal counseling services. He just believes that we should treat others with kindness, to be at least as quick to offer encouragement to others, to take a step back and try to be understanding before speaking out of anger. That we realize that character is more important than characteristics. Honesty to ourselves and others is always a good policy, and that we all have our own paths to follow from point A to B. If we all are able to feel more comfortable with who we are in life, he thinks everyone will be happier, which he believes will carry through and make a better society. Being able to talk to others, not just therapists, can be a tremendous therapy on its own. Thank you so much for listening to episode 2. If you like it, give it a thumbs up, a star, a rating, a review. Any way you can help get this message out there and share this with more people, I will greatly thank you. Plus, I'll probably put some affiliate links at pod.joyousexpansion.com, so that will help you support me in getting these interviews out there, plus give you some amazing product that I enjoy in my life. If you have any questions or want to communicate, if this sparked any interest in you and you just want to send me an email, I'm at brettdupree@joyousexpansion.com. You can find me on Facebook at Facebook.com/increaseyourjoy. That's my fan page. I'm also on Twitter and Instagram at joyousexpansion. I was smart enough to get my branding names on those ones. And you can always check out my website at joyousexpansion.com. Again, thank you so much for listening. And now it's time to play my jingle.
Joyousexpansion.com. Joyousexpansion.com. Come and say hello to Brett Dupree. He is an inspirational life coach. Good for you and good for me. He turned my life from grey to blue. I'm sure he'll do the same for you. Get in touch and you'll see your life will change dramatically. Joyousexpansion.com. Joyousexpansion.com. Yeah.